Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Synergy Open Forum. This is the training session for more familiar users, but everybody is welcome. I see Willem is here today. Willem, I think you were saying that if you're in a rubric and you're looking at that rubric in a particular repertory, in MacRep, you would be able to just switch repertories and it would take you to the matching rubric in that other repertory. And how can we do that in SHS? So I think the best way to do that would be in global search, and it will give you all of the matching rubrics in all of the repertories. And you don't have to do the process all over again. And so I'll just start with Willem's question, which he had written to me, I think, a week or so ago. And I don't know the specific rubric, Willem, that you were working with. But for example, if you're looking for, I just looked this up. So says, let's say in the mouth section, and you want, there is an acrid taste or a bitter taste. So let's say we type acrid. And that I would just put it here instead of going into one of the repertories. You can see that I have my repertories pinned here, my top 5 that I like to work with. And then all of the others are at the bottom. I'm not going in through the mouth chapter here. I'm just typing it over here. And then when I go in, it will give me all rubrics related to acrid in the mouth section because I limited it to the mouth section. And so then here, as you can see, well, all of the rubrics in all of the repertories are here. And so it will give you mouth acrid, incomplete, and then you can click on reliable, and it seems like there's a lot in reliable with acrid, much more so than in the complete 21. You know, here you can see there's only 3 rubrics, but in reliable, we have quite a few, 2 screens worth. And then it seems like there was nothing in the other 3 repertories that I favor. Where, you know, the Q rep makes sense that there's nothing in it. And then the other 2 don't have much either. But then, of course, you have all the completes. The old completes will have acrid. You can look at acute, and there's something about acrid saliva. You can look at Boninghausen. There are some of the older ones, Jar, Kent, Nur, Hatherley Lax, which is one of the newer ones. Of course, Borky, acrid and hot. So, Willem, this is how I would do it. I would just type either the exact rubric or some of the words of the rubric that I know. And then I can search all of the repertories that have similar rubrics. And I don't have to go through here manually, one repertory after another, going in through the section and then navigating to the rubric, to the similar rubric. So I hope that answers your question. Just let us know. Lucy is with me, and she is behind the scenes manning the chat box and the Q&A box. So, okay, so Willem's saying I have to think which rubric it was. That's fine. But I hope that demonstrated and sort of answered your question. Diana is asking, how do you pin your repertories? Sure. So I think most everyone has 1 or 2 favorite repertories that they default to all the time. And it's good if you can have those repertories all the way at the top, so you don't have to scroll down alphabetically to find those. And the same thing actually goes for Materia Medica. So you can see that I have, you know, my top 3 or 4 references pinned at the top here. I have 2 reverse repertories. I have a pharmacopoeia, and I have 2 materia medica books. It keeps changing, but I still like to have at least 1 reverse repertory, 1 pharmacopoeia type, so I can look up remedies that I don't know, the source information, and then a couple of materia medicas. So the way to pin your favorite repertories and materia medica books or references is to come up here. I'm just going to move my zoom bar, come up here to user preferences right here. And then you can see here, you have the possibility to customize the settings in all these different areas: repertory, clipboards, reference library, patient management, language, background. So to pin your repertories, you would come here to the repertory section and the repertory settings section. And here you can see that I have pinned my repertories. So basically, let me get rid of some of these and I can show you. You need to leave at least 1 in here as a default. But then when you click inside the box, it will display your list of repertories, and you can either select one. So let's say I want the acute, and it will put it up in here, or you can type the first 3 letters. So if I put Q, it will show me the Q rep. Let's say I want JAR. So I just type JA and it pulls up JAR. And then you can say, oh, I just want these 4, and you can click on save. When you click on save, it will reload your program to make sure that your repertories are pinned at the top, and it will give you the view with the repertories pinned at the top. Make sure that your work is saved before you change any of your settings, because it will always reload your program after you change settings. Just in case you forget, it will give you a pop-up and it will say you closed without saving clipboards. And so you do have the possibility to restore any lost work. I'm just going to say no here. And then the same thing, go back into preferences and then go to reference library. And then you can see I have 5 things saved here. So I can, let me make the box a bit bigger. And so here I can type, let's say, I don't know, let's type Sankran, for example. So I just type the first few letters and it brings up all the Sankran books. And I can, let's say I put that, and then I take off the pharmacopoeia, and then let's say I want more vermeulen in there. I type a few letters, it comes up, then I say save. And it will do the same thing again. And so you can see now I had pinned acute and Q and JAR, and those are at the top. And then when I go into my reference library in the book section, you can see that Sensation and Prisma have replaced the pharmacopoeia and the reverse repertory that I had in there. So that's how you would pin your books, your favorite books at the top. You can do a maximum of 5 in each of those 2 sections. So any other questions, Lucy?
Yes. A couple of people had asked how to get the complete 2023, and I just reminded them to contact their local sales representative or through our website. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, somebody asked about transferring cases from the old MacRep to SHS, and I was just answering that, but just to tell people that you can go through our tech support department and they'll be happy to do that. So you just submit a ticket. I can put that link in the chat.
Yeah, please do that. So I think just a couple of other items for that. If you already have a complete, then remember that you'll just be upgrading your complete from the old one to the latest one. And that's a much smaller price tag than if you're buying a complete all the way new. If you're buying it outright, like for the first time, I think going to the website is fine. But if you're just updating, might be better to go through your dealer, or if you're in the States, then write to us and we can set up an order for you. And then, yeah, for cases, it's become quite commonplace to transfer the cases. We do it all the time. So just put in a ticket and they'll do it for you. The only thing I do advise everyone is to save a copy of your cases, like back them up and save a copy of them somewhere on an external hard drive, and then, call us so you have a backup. Because glitches and technology mishaps can happen. And so if you have a saved copy, that's always a good thing. The other thing I would suggest is if you were an extensive and long-term user of MacRep, you probably have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of cases. So don't, we do not recommend transferring all of them at the same time. We suggest that you take your most recent active cases, let's say the ones that you've been working on in the last 2 years, and create a folder with just your recent cases, and then transfer those and start working with those. Make sure that they're fine, they moved over well, and those are patients that are still coming to you. So you'll be, working with those cases in SHS. Get used to working with those cases in SHS. And then once you are, actively seeing those patients and managing them in the Synergy program, then you can go back and move all your historical cases over, the ones that aren't active. And I would still recommend doing them in batches instead of saying transfer 3,000 cases at the same time. Not only does it take a very long time, you will not be able to go in and check each case if it's thousands of cases. So just do them a few at a time. And then once you're comfortable and they look good, then, do the rest, but also in batches. So
somebody is asking, requesting, I'd like to do that on my own if possible, but we highly recommend, because there's a utility that we have.
Actually, there's two. Yeah, there's two. We would have to install a version of MacRep on your computer that allows you to back up your cases in a format that's readable by Synergy, the Synergy program. So we would have to install a version of MacRep that does that, but it's not a good version of MacRep for you to use on an ongoing basis because there are bugs in it that we can't fix anymore. But it's a good version just to back up the cases into a format that Synergy can read. And then we have to install a utility that converts those backed up cases from MacRep into Synergy itself. And so we would have to install 2 different pieces of software on your computer. You would have to do that. And then you would have to do these 2 sort of processes, one to run that MacRep alias, and then to run this utility. And then you would end up with the cases in Synergy. So it's for somebody who's used to doing it, it's straightforward, but for somebody who's not, used to doing it, it's a complicated process. And so it would take a lot more of our time to fix if something went wrong than for us to do it the first time around. If you're really keen on doing it yourself, then, you can, but it's highly recommended, as Lucy's saying. It's a complicated multi-step process because they're written in 2 completely different languages. So you have to convert one language to a common language, and then that common language to the Synergy language. So that's the situation.
Okay. All right, on to some functionality questions.
Okay.
Brigitte has asked, I want to know how to search for concomitants, but she specifies that. She says, for instance, if somebody has cataracts and uterine complaints,
yeah,
she would like to know, she would like almost those to be in the same sentence as ongoing concomitants, not that they're two separate symptoms in the same remedy, but concomitants actually. And is there a way to look for that specific?
Well,
Maybe look in
so
the same
uterine,
sentence, maybe use that proximity possibly.
yeah, so I would suggest using this global search bar, this very useful multi-purpose global search bar. Uterine complaints and cataracts is easy, right? Cataracts, right? And then I think it's going to be unusual to find in the same sentence those two things, because they're just such completely divergent things. But you don't want them as two existing issues in the same remedy. I mean, try. I think you would have to play around with it a little bit. And then uterine complaints is a big area. There can be all kinds of uterine complaints. So, I mean, I wouldn't, honestly, I don't think you will find cataracts in the same sentence as metrorrhagia, for example, or amenorrhea. You're not going to find it in that same sentence. You might, but I mean, and so I think you would have to pin down the uterine complaints. If there are more than one, then you can put them all in the same search, for example. So I wouldn't use the same sentence, but you can definitely play with it. I would say, let's say in the same remedy, and I'm just tapping the space bar to come to the different proximity words in the same remedy as, and let's say, I don't know what it is, like menses within 2 words of absent in the same remedy as, I don't know, although that's kind of unlikely, because if her menses are absent, then she's not going to have dysmenorrhea. But let's just put it in there. And so what I'm doing here is I'm collecting all the uterine complaints, and I've got cataracts, and then maybe there's more concomitants, but usually this is how we search for concomitants, is you're saying, give me that remedy, which has this as well as this, as well as this, as well as this for the same person. They may not be occurring at the same time, but they are there in the totality of symptoms for this patient. And so I can run that search. It's obviously not going to yield a repertory result because there's no rubric that would have that. But you can see there are 161 remedies that came up for a very generic search that I just typed up and made up. But in your case, you might have more specific things that can be put in this search, and that will help you narrow this down. I like to narrow it down to about 10 remedies or so, and keep refining the search till you come down to a manageable list of remedies. The other way to narrow it down, if you work that way, would be to filter it for a particular group of remedies or particular kingdom or subkingdom, and that would narrow it also considerably and bring it down. That's, I mean, unless I had more information, I think that's what I would recommend, is to play around with the search using the concomitants, refine the concomitants, and then I would use the remedy proximity instead of the sentence, depending on, I mean, if they're widely divergent. If it's menses absent and dysmenorrhea, you could probably see them in the same paragraph. So you could use para. But if they're widely divergent, like cataracts and uterine complaints, then I would use remedy. That's what I would suggest.
Excellent. There are no questions right now.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. I mean, are there any suggestions where from maybe somebody could suggest something where they would like to know some part of the program that they haven't used yet, or something from a case that you're working on that is
Okay, Elena has requested, could you please show how to use the reversed repertory?
Sure. So the reversed repertory, let's see, I took out mine, but here's one, but let's go to the complete. So here. So the reverse repertory is a collection. So you collect all the symptoms in the repertory from all the chapters for each remedy. And so here you can see when you expand the reverse repertory, you can see that it's organized by remedy. And then if you open the first one, you can see that it's organized by section. And then there is a collection of all the rubrics for Abel Moscas in the complete 2005 in the mind section. So what it really is a picture of the remedy in rubrics. And if so, you'll get the bolded rubrics and the regular rubrics. You won't get all 4 grades, but you can also see, who added that, who brought the rubric into the repertory. And so here you can see, and if you just, so Abel Moscas is a smaller remedy, and so you can see that there are fewer rubrics. Also, the repertory that I'm using here is from 2005, the reversed. And of course, I'm sure that if I went to like the 2021 reverse, there would be more rubrics for Abel Moscas. But as you scan through, you can get a good idea of the remedy and the picture of the remedy, where the remedy is indicated, where it's, which parts of the body is it more indicated for, where are there more. So you can see there's some heart, there's extremities, and I think there's some mouth and face. So you can get a picture of the remedy by scrolling through the rubrics, which are all collected from the repertory. That's one use of it. The other use I find is if I'm considering giving a remedy based on the constitutional picture, and the patient has come in for a specific complaint that is not generally well known for that remedy. So then in that case, I usually come here to the reverse repertory and I look at that section. So I'm thinking of an example. I don't know, Staph aureus, for example, for skin complaints. I don't, at the top of my head, if somebody comes in for a skin complaint, I'm not thinking of Staph aureus. And if you were to ask me, honestly, I can't think of the specific skin issues that Staph aureus would be indicated for. I know the overall picture of Staph aureus, and I also know that it's very useful for recurrent chronic cystitis. But I'm not thinking of it for skin. But if the case that the patient gives me indicates Staph aureus, then I would come in here and I would pull up Staph aureus and I would pull up the skin section, and I would see if those kinds of issues were present in Staph aureus. And so instead of going into different write-ups of Staph aureus in the Materia Medica books, I would just rather come here because I can right away see all the skin rubrics. And actually, let's do that. So I just on my keyboard typed STA and it took me to the first STA remedy. And so here we go, Staph aureus, right? And then we can scroll down till we come to skin. You see, and so then right away, instead of going through different Materia Medica sections on Staph, I can just look at all the rubrics, and you can see that it's indicated in bold for cysts, for dryness, several kinds of eruptions. So, it seems to be a fairly active remedy for skin conditions, especially all kinds of eruptions. And so that's, really useful. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I wouldn't have sort of remembered that from my understanding of Staph aureus, which is much more sort of traditional. And so here you see there's a lot of skin issues. And I just pulled that, I just made that up right now. I don't have a patient with skin conditions who needs Staph aureus, but this is what I find it very useful for, is also when I'm not familiar with a particular section or part of a remedy, and the patient case indicates that remedy, then I can come here and familiarize myself. The third thing that I find it really useful for a reverse repertory is if I'm considering two close remedies for a patient, and they have some kind of, physical issue, obviously, that is present for both those remedies. So both of those remedies could, so for example, let's take Staph aureus again. Let's say I'm considering pulsatilla versus Staph aureus. They both come from the same family, Ranunculaceae, and they're both indicated for cystitis. So then in this case, so let's say the patient is coming for cystitis, but I can't quite, from the picture that she's giving me, I can't quite separate out pulsatilla from Staph aureus. They're both indicated constitutionally, and they're both indicated for the chief complaint. So in this case, what I would do is I would put them side by side. And I would look at the cystitis rubrics of pulsatilla and compare them to the cystitis rubrics of Staph aureus and have them side by side. And then it would give me, just seeing them laid out on the screen like that would tell me which remedy might be more useful, and might help me choose between those two very close remedies. So that's the third thing that I find a reverse repertory really useful for. I don't know, Lucy, if you have any other suggestions.
No, I think you've covered it very well. By the way, Brigitte has reported that she did search in global search for cataracts in the same sentence as uterine.
Mm-hmm.
And she came up with 11 remedies.
Great.
And then when she put uterine complaints and made it even smaller, she had 3 remedies. So she was happy that
good
worked well
good
for her. Yeah. And let's see, another question. I'm trying to read that. Okay, so Krista asks.
Actually, you know what? Brigitte is also asking how to do side-by-side reverse rep.
Okay, let's cover
See that. So since I'm still here and we just talked about it, so now if I hover over here, let me move the Zoom bar. They really should figure out a way to collapse the Zoom bar. So I have the skin section here for Staph aureus. And then what I can do, so I'm in here, I can press my left arrow key to come back into the remedy level and then type PUL. Let's see. Okay. So, and I just typed PUL, it brought me to the first PUL remedy. You can see that pulsatilla is right here. And so what I'm going to do is open pulsatilla. And since we're in skin, let's compare skin for both. And I would just come here to the skin, and I would do a right click If you have a Mac, then you would hold down the control key and you would click and let go of the control key, and it says open in a new window. And now I have pulsatilla skin and I have Staphylococcus aureus skin. And then I would just come here, compare side by side. And the active window here right now is the pulsatilla window. So I want to compare this one to the active window. I would say, okay. And you can now see that the skin sections of both pulsatilla and Staphylococcus aureus are side by side. And you can compare the two. And obviously, I mean, I guess they're both strongly present in the skin section. So it's going to be, you know, a big section. You're going to have to scroll through. You're going to look for, depending on what the complaint is with the patient, you might, you know, you'll go to those specific rubrics and compare those specific rubrics. I mean, if it's about pimples, for example, let's say, you know, then you're going to look for pimples here. And so you can see that there are 2 bold rubrics, but a total of 5 rubrics for one remedy, and, you know, several more here. But you can look for, you know, the quality of the pimple, and so on and so forth, and you can compare the two side by side, and it might help you decide one remedy over the other. So that's how you would do a side by side. You basically open 2 tabs and then you come to the compare tabs side by side button, and put them side by side. You can do only 2, but you can definitely open more tabs, which you can then click and check. So, you know, if there were 3 remedies, for example, you could definitely open 3 tabs, but you wouldn't be able to do them all side by side, but you could do them 2 at a time. Sorry, I just happened to see that on the Q&A, so I thought it would be, you know, good to jump onto that. What was the one, Lucy, that you were going to say when I interrupted you?
Oh, yes. Okay. Krista asks, when I'm checking for original proving systems, sometimes I can't find them.
Okay.
For example, delusions around snakes, Abel Moshe's. And so she's just wondering about the original source. How would you find? I know that we have some provings in our reference library.
Right. So it would depend, Krista, which proving you got that symptom from, for example, or if you know that that's an original proving symptom. The one thing to do, so let me get rid of some of these things here. So the one thing would be to come here, for example, and you could just check off provings and say, okay, and then it gives you all of the provings. The other thing would be to look for, I don't know, if you're looking for,
you know, it was also Abel Moshe's, so you could filter for Abel Moshe's.
That's what, yes, that's exactly what I was going to do, is
and then look,
you could do, and so it, you know, it comes up here, and then you could just say, I don't know if we have a proving for Abel Moshe's. You see, so we don't have the original proving for Abel Moshe's. So it would be hard for the program to bring up a symptom from the proving if we don't have the proving. But if you were looking for the original symptom that made it into the, so let's assume that that symptom, delusion of snakes, made it into the repertory for Abel Moshe's. So then the question then becomes, can you, I mean, then I would go here, I could do a couple of different things. I could pull up, let's pull up, oops, let's get rid of that. And then, I mean, I guess the latest reverse that I have at the moment is the 2020. So I would come here, I would go to Abel Moshe's, I would go to the mind section, and let me get rid of the other one. And then I would look for delusion of snakes, and here it is, you know, right here. So that's one way. And in fact, it demonstrates also how you can use the reverse repertory. That would be one way to find it. The other way, if you didn't want to do it manually, go through the reverse repertory, able Moscus, and then look through the mind section, would be to say delusion within 2 words of snakes. And then I would go here. And I'm only looking in repertories, and let me get rid of this also. So I'm only looking for a rubric now. And I would come here, I would go to remedy, and I would type able, select able, apply. And then I would run that. I don't think I have any other searches, but just to be on the safe side, I would open this search in a new tab. And you see it pulls up that symptom that you're looking for, which is a proving symptom, apparently, and then it pulls it up. And I pulled it up from, I just typed it up, but it will come up in all of the different repertories that it's there. So that would be the other way to find it. And the more manual way would be to go through the reverse repertory.
Roopali, do you also think it would be helpful to look at that rubric and repertory module and look at the reference string? I know sometimes there are
we
contexts.
do that. Absolutely. So we could do that, go into delusions. I just type DEL, and that brings me here, and then I press the right arrow key and I type SNA, and here we are. And you can always do again a control click or a right click, and you can say view rubric info. That will tell you about the rubric. But if you were to come into able Moscus and just hover over able Moscus, then it says view reference string authors, and you could click on that. Let's see. So you can see Julian OA, Materia Medica of New Homeopathic Remedies, and Vitulcus. So I don't know what the proving is on able Moscus and who did the proving, but at least Roger van Zandvoort added that symptom from Julian and from Vitulcus. And so that's the source of the edition in the 2021. I noticed, if we go back here, so obviously I'm assuming that all of these reference strings would be the same, that he picked it up from Julian and from Vitulcus, but Suggesta, we could do the same thing. And so here, animals of snakes in and around her, but you can see that we don't have the reference string, but it would have been interesting to see where Massimo got that information from and what would be the reference string for him. And since Krista is asking that question, maybe Krista knows since she works with Massimo, but we don't have the reference string.
Well, we did answer her question. She wanted to know about the string. She was looking for what Julian said. So I think.
Okay. So then, yes. So in that case, then we found the exact reference. Let me go back. And you can see I'm just minimizing them instead of closing them. So here, view reference string. And so here, Materia Medica of New Homeopathic Remedies from 1979, published by Beaconsfield. That's the original reference string from where Roger got that information.
And then Krista goes on to say, do we have those source books in the library? Well, sometimes we have the source books and sometimes we
do have Julian. I don't know if it's this exact one. So the thing to do would be to come back in here and type Julian. And we do have Julian's new remedies, and there's able Moscus. And so would be in here. Here.
And so the word delusion is not there in that. So that's why.
No. And so I don't know. So the other thing is obviously also the book, when we put a book in the program, the book gets chopped up. It doesn't get rewritten, so it's exactly as it was in this book. Let's see about the book. It is the Beaconsfield edition from 1979. The book does get chopped up, so it's able to be searched by the global search. And it gets indexed in a way that it can, some of this information can be picked up at the same level in different remedies. The best thing to check the exact way that it was presented in the book would obviously be to get hold of a paper version of the book. I do know that when we put books in the program, we chop them up by remedy, by section, so that all of the information is on the same hierarchical level and can be searched by the program. So I don't know if that makes any difference. And I don't know why this says fear of animals. And then when we look it up, it also got put into delusion. So maybe I don't know if there are sources in Julian's book, and he's going off of a proving. So that, this obviously this is the issue in terms of going from a proving. So this, you can see that this rubric is in the repertory now, but it comes from a materia medica mention, which probably came from a proving mention. And so it's at least 2, if not 3 degrees removed from the original source that we got this from. And that's the issue when we're going off of repertories or 2nd degree or 3rd degree information versus, primary literature, which is the provings. So, I have a huge partiality to actual provings and reading the proving information, because then that's primary information. So I can't explain the jump from the proving to how Julian wrote about it to then how it, was eventually put into the repertory and under the words that were used, fear versus delusion. Fear and obsession of being attacked by venomous animals, nocturnal fears and obsession. That's a particular way of putting it. There's no, the other thing with the repertory is that things have to get chopped up, because you can't express complex sentiments in a one simple rubric. There's ways of writing that rubric. And so, one symptom can be broken up into many different rubrics in the repertory. So that is also a limitation of the repertory.
And Krista says, thank you. So
okay. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was really good to see that. You've asked, is it possible to choose a book in global search? And certainly there's a lot of filtering options there. So
yes. So right now this is filtered, I think, by remedy. So I'm going to just get rid of the filter by pressing on that pink button, and I can come back here, and you can see that if you're doing a repertory search only, then you can filter by author, which is repertory authors, different repertory authors. But if I was to do a reference library search, then you can filter by books. So, you can choose a specific book or a collection of books. I'm just going to type Vermeulen again because it's easy. And then you see all of the Vermeulen books come up. And let's say you just decide that you want to see if Vermeulen picked this symptom up, then you could just say select all. And then the search would only run for delusion of snakes in all of the Vermeulen books. You could also do a multi-filter. So let's say that I was going to do this, and then I'm going to say remedy. Actually, no, let's not do that. That would really,
And
Well,
Rupali,
let's try.
you need to tick your reference library.
I
or
know. I'm going to
Okay.
do that after, because if I go there, then the box will go away.
Okay.
So let's say let's say we stick with Abel Moscus. And then, so now I'm doing it. I did this for reference library. And I've got a multi-level search. So I've got Abel Moscus and I've got books. And you can go here and you can see that those books are all selected. I'm going to hit apply. And I'm going to change the search to reference library because I actually put the filter as a reference library filter. And so let's run this as a new search just for the heck of it to see what comes up. And that's interesting. Nothing comes up. So it's possible that Vermeulen did not pick up on that for Abel Moscus, or Vermeulen doesn't have a book that talks about Abel Moscus. But it might be easier. So
it might be interesting to put fear snakes, that whole differentiation
yes,
between.
yeah, exactly. And so fear, I usually put it like this. And then sometimes in that trinity of mental symptoms, I might also put anxiety in there. Because if you're worried, scared, dream about, or have delusions of, generally about the same thing. So I might put anxiety in there, but that trinity is good. I think what's freaking it out, it's just, let's take Abel Moscus. Let's just see any remedies, or let's put a kingdom in there. Let's do Insecta and apply. And then let's run this as a new search. Oh, I'm wondering why that's happening. Let's do, and then we did Insecta.
Now you have the Repertories button ticked. Did you
Yep.
put that? Okay.
So I'm going to run the search also for Repertories and apply and do this and run this again. And so we do see, so now you can see the insect filter coming up. You can see the snakes, dreams, no rubrics, dreams, and a fear and dreams in 2023. So both. But it's not able to pick up any of the Vermeulen stuff in the reference library. So I'm not sure, but I will report that. I don't know why it's not picking up here. So I will take a screenshot of that. But yes, it is possible to limit your search by books, and it's possible to limit your search on multiple levels and have all of those levels run in the search. Just remember, the more complex and the more filtered the search, the smaller and smaller your results. So sometimes then you may not have results if you over refine the search like too much. So keep that in mind as well.
Rupali, you might want to just quickly show them also how they can create their own category and how they can select that category in the global search filter. When you
absolutely. Okay, sure. So let me clear this filter here. So when Krista asked that question about proving symptoms, I came to these preset book filters you can see, where you can filter your entire library just by the class of literature. So either clinical material or journals or materia medica, philosophy, provings, editions, etc., etc. But you can also create a custom category, and that custom category can be, for example, a favorite author, or it can be, I don't know, a collection of books that you trust, other than the top 5 that you might have pinned up in your reference library. Let's say there are 10 books that you look at all the time. It's not possible to pin those 10, but you can create a custom filter here. You can call it whatever. So my favorites, I've created 2 here, but you can just click on create and you can type a name. So let's say, I'm just going to call it Synergy, but you can call it whatever you like. Say okay. And now it's going to give you the list of books that you have in your reference library. And you can pick and choose either all the ones from a particular author or your favorite ones, or all the ones that have, I don't know, good writings on metal remedies, anything, any kind of grouping that you want to make out of your biggish reference library. They're all relatively big, whichever program or edition that you have. So let's say that I am going to do what I just did in that filter. And so I'm going to select, I don't know, all the Vermeulens, but not his new plants book. So, and I left all the plants, and I'm going to put Synoptic 2, and I'm going to say save. And then when I come here and I go all the way down, you can see my synergy list is there. You can always delete your old lists, or a list that's no longer useful. You can delete it. You can edit it. But I have my synergy list here now, and I can always filter in 2 ways. So if I say, okay, now it's only showing me that reduced list that I want to see, and I don't want to see the 900 books that I have in my reference library. So this is one way in which this is useful. The other way in which this is useful is, let's go here, and I'm going to clear all of the filters that I had previously applied, and I'm going to come back here. And so you can't do this for your repertory search, because the custom category we created is in our reference library. It has no repertories. So when you come to repertories, you don't get that as an option. But when you go to your reference library, you can limit it by category. And in the category, you can see that all your custom categories are here. And let's say I'm going to limit it by my synergy category, which I just created. And I can say apply. So when I run this search for the repertory results, obviously I'll get all of the repertory results from all the repertories, but for my reference library, it will only look in that custom category that I created. So let's run that search. So obviously, I mean, this is a very common rubric. So you're going to get tons of results in all of these repertories. But then when you go to the reference library, it only ran, you can see Vermeulen, fungi. These are all only Vermeulen books, Materia Medica, Synoptic 1, Vermeulen 2, all the different Vermeulens that we put in that custom category. And you got 21 remedies that have either a fear or a dream or a delusion of snakes. And, you know, just like any reference library search, you can just click here and you can put that on a clipboard. And here you have all the remedies that came up and you can see them. It's much simpler here to look at them like this, I find, than here where you have to scroll through. But then here you can look at, you know, each individual reference and trace it back, and click on the reference and go back into Materia Medica. So different uses for both. And then if you like what you see, obviously, then you can put it on the clipboard. But that is another use for creating a custom category. So to the person who asked whether we can filter with books, you can filter with specific books or a collection of books that you've created. And it can be a custom collection that you've created in your reference library. And that also has multiple uses, either filtering or just restricting your reference library view to that particular custom filter. We are also, and I think this was a request from Betty Woods or Krista. I forget, and Krista's here, she can. We've also created the possibility now to go in here in remedies and do a custom collection of remedies. So for example, drug remedies or oils or I don't know, precious metals, whatever kind of grouping that you want to create, you can create a custom grouping of remedies, and then you can filter here in global search with that, or you can, restrict your view to that custom grouping that you've created. So, I mean, of course, mammals and things like that, it's all already there. But if you want to create a custom group, then you can do that. That's not present in the latest version of the program, but I think it should be there either in the next release, which is coming soon, or the one after that, to be able to create a custom grouping of remedies, as well as a custom grouping of books, which is already there. So.
Thanks, Roopali. We're almost out of time. We did have one other question. Somebody was wondering how to filter for subclass and superclass. I know that mostly in Vital Quest, that's where all that information is currently.
Right.
And it's sort of a work in progress in the Kingdom.
It's a work in progress. So I'll give you a short answer. It's a work in progress. If you have Vital Quest, you can come in here, and in Vital Quest notes, the first information here is on superclass and subclass. And here you can click on this as well. And you can, so we have some flat information at the moment on superclasses and subclasses, but the filters are being worked on, both in the Kingdom section here, but also in the filters all across the program. And, Dr. Shankaran's team and he are working on this material, and I think they're also working on a book. And so as the team, develops and works on that material and makes it available to us, we can make it available in the program. So the filters are under construction, and the rest of the material will follow as the team makes it available to us.
Thanks, Roopali, and we are out of time, and there are no more questions. We did get to all of them.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming and for your questions. I hope the session was helpful. Please reach out to us or your dealer or technical support on some of those issues that came up regarding case transfer and the complete 2023, and we'll be happy to help you, and see you next time. Have a great weekend. Take care.